this regard. And that is the simplistic understanding of politics from those who say this. Politics is very, very complicated. And there are multiple levels and layers. In the simple example, in every Western democratic country, there are levels of politicians. You have the city politician, you have the state politician, you have the federal politician, and you have other levels of politicians as well. The city and state have nothing to do with ethics and morality. The city and state have to do with the zoning laws. The city and state have to do with, how to get funds for the school. Something simple that the Sharia actually allows you to participate in. So to claim that, even if you wanted to claim that, al-Musharri' is Allah, and therefore to participate in a system that seems to suggest that there are other Musharri'een besides Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, even this we say it would not apply to any type of involvement of politics in which that level of tashri', that level of laws is being avoided. And the simple example, state level, city level, community level, in which you are electing politicians that are going to take care of city taxes. They're going to take care of city zoning laws. They're going to take care of curriculum for the schools. This has nothing to do with, the federal issues, foreign wars, invasion. It has nothing to do with morality, LGBT, all of this stuff. Nothing. Because this is just the state level. And in fact, state level politics is more effective for community building, and Muslims can have a greater impact because the number of votes you need is much less, right? And so to even claim that voting is haram and kufr because of this issue, it means they're completely neglecting that most voting of the local politics has nothing to do with what they're saying anyway. So this is the second point, that even if you wanted to go there, it would only apply to one level of voting and not all of the other levels. A simple example here, in many states, including Texas, you vote for the school board. You vote for the school board. And the school board decides curriculum. It decides what days you can get off. It decides timings of the school, right? What type of kufr and shirk is this? Nothing. And if you have Muslims on the school board, they can say, you know what, we have enough Muslims in the district, we should have Eid off. If you have enough Muslims on the school board, you can say, you know what, this curriculum, this book here, it is anti-religious, Islamophobic, whatnot. We don't want it there. And they can make a better curriculum. How can anybody say there's kufr and shirk when it comes to, for example, voting for the school board? You see what I'm saying? So the second point is that you are being extremely simplistic and not understanding that there are layers of politics. And even if you wanted to criticize, you only criticize one layer and the rest would be completely mubah. Jade. Now let's get to the higher layer, because that's the point. Point number 3 here, and that is that the critic once again takes a generic verse without an understanding of fiqh and usul al-fiqh, without an understanding of qawa'id fiqhiyya, maxims of fiqh. And this goes back to my muqaddimah introduction. This is why I don't like talking about this, because you have to sound complicated and fancy. And the average Muslim, you can easily impress the average Muslim, both sides, both the critic and the response to the critic, because the average Muslim is not qualified. What is qawa'id fiqhiyya? What is daruriyat al-qawa'id al-kubra al-khamsa, right? What is usul al-fiqh? They don't know these terms, and you just throw a few terms, you just throw a few maxims and qawa'id, and you can mesmerize them. And that's why, as I said, I feel sorry for the average layperson who has to now wonder, what do I do? But still, we have to do this, because there's something called maxims of fiqh, qawa'id fiqhiyya. And maxims of fiqh are general rules that are used to navigate difficult areas. And of those general rules, areas that are not explicit in the Quran and Sunnah, those that are explicit, you don't use qawa'id fiqhiyya. Of those general rules is the rule that when the situation becomes difficult, when the situation becomes dire, the Sharia gives you concessions that would not otherwise be given. Okay? So when it's a type of darura or haja, right? Then that which is mahdhur, al-daruriyat tubihu al-mahdhurat, right? That which is mahdhur, that which is prohibited, or that which is makruh might become, lifted from you. So now we're talking about navigating. Allah is the musharri'. Allah is the one who legislates. In al-hukmu illa lillah. You know that Allah has the ultimate right to legislate. But now there are people dying, for example, in Gaza, right? And you feel if your community comes together, you can potentially save those people from dying. In this case now, you are following a maxim of fiqh. Now, the critic can disagree, that say it doesn't apply here, but the critic cannot disagree with the maxim of fiqh.
The maxim of fiqh, what is the dalil about it, Sheikh? Just to let people understand this point.
So there are multiple evidences for this. The most obvious evidence, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala in over 10 verses in the Quran says that إِلَّا مَنْ أُكْرِهَ, or for example that إِلَّا مَا اضْطُرِرْتُمْ إِلَيْهِ, that when you are forced to do so, right? When there is a greater good to do so. And this is actually proven even in the Sunnah as well, that there was a Sahabi who found a lost camel, and the lost camel technically doesn't belong to you. You have to wait for the owner. But then that Sahabi was, and his wife were literally about to die. They didn't have any food. So they had to they had to destroy property that is not theirs in order to save their lives. And when the Prophet found out, of course, he allowed this to happen, because you're balancing here. The technical rule, this camel does not belong to you. You have no right to take its life. But now, if it's between your life and, the camel's life, well then, the camel's life, it becomes permissible for you, right? This is an authentic incident in the seerah that demonstrates when you have priorities clashing, when you have differences of prohibitions, you will take the lesser prohibition over the bigger one. So now you have a gray area. The person knows Allah is the musharri'. The person knows I'm not wanting to challenge Allah's rububiyyah, Allah's divine, nature to legislate. But now I have to get involved to save lives. You give him an excuse. This is rule number 3 here, that even if you disagree with his application, you cannot disagree with the rule. And if the person or the scholars are thinking that this rule applies here, this is their ijtihad. You cannot bring shirk and kufr into this issue. It's like saying somebody who's forced to eat maita, oh, so you're saying Allah Azza wa Jal allowed the pig? No, they know pig is haram, or they know that something is haram, but their circumstances. Now again, you can disagree, say, I don't agree, that circumstance warrants it. That's your ijtihad. The person in this context, the scholars who allow it, their ijtihad is different than your ijtihad, and in the end of the day, you both have to answer to Allah, but you cannot then invoke shirk and kufr. So this is the third point here, okay? So the fourth point we say is that our brothers who say this simplistic statement that participating is kufr, participating is shirk, participating is haram, I don't doubt their sincerity, but I doubt their knowledge of reality, because what then is the alternative? Jayyid, salamna, we agree, jadalan, let's just say for the sake of argument's sake, right? Let's just say, khalas, haram, shirk, kufr. What do you want us to do? And some of them will say, establish the khilafah. And I have said multiple times, Jayyid, may Allah bless and help you. Until then, we just sit back and allow this to happen. You go ahead. I've said this multiple times. Who's stopping you? Go ahead.
They tried.
Then go for
these
them.
Crazy groups. They tried.
But for some reason, our critics don't want to join those groups, which I don't understand.
Yeah.
I don't understand, because according to you, they have established it. So then join them. But these critics that say voting in shirk and haram, generally they don't want to join these groups, which again, I personally still haven't understood why, because according to your philosophy, they are applying your version of the Sharia. They're applying your understanding. You would think they're legitimate khulafa, and I didn't understand why at the time they didn't join them. But khair, let us leave that, because they get very sensitive in this regard. For the record, I don't believe this group is legitimate. The one that pseudo applied the khilafah. I believe that they are fanatical extremists who don't understand Allah's Sharia as it should be applied. And just like the early Kharijites, that they, like the Prophet said, the Prophet literally predicted this mindset. He literally said, "Sufaha'u al-ahlami hudatha'u al-asnani yaquluna min khayri qawli al-bariyya." This description, it applies to many of these groups as well, with love and respect to them. Youngsters with idealistic visions, it sounds so good what they say, but what they are doing is destroying the religion. This is exactly the descriptions. I'm not saying these descriptions. Literally, I'm quoting the prophetic words, sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Idealistic in vision, utopic. They have these grandiose ideas, but they're foolish. And they're youngsters themselves. They haven't lived life. They haven't experienced. So what is the alternative? What do you want us to do? And they don't have an alternative. It's just slogans. And problems are not solved by slogans. Actual problems are not solved by emotional, nice quips. So this is point number 4, that with respect to these groups, I don't doubt their sincerity. I've met them. I've interacted with them. I know they love Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They think they want to establish Allah's commandments on earth. But they don't seem to have an actual methodology, an actual vision and chart. Is just everybody else is wrong, you're right, but they don't even have how to show you're right, how to go forth. What do you want us to do? 50,000 people in Gaza have passed away directly, 250,000 indirectly, and you just want us to sit back and do absolutely nothing? I'm sorry, that's not a viable plan. And may Allah protect you, but with utmost, may Allah protect you and your families. If your family were the one being killed right now, you would not have this view. You wouldn't. You would do something to do that, right?